It's Query and Company.
I'm going to be keeping you company for the next few hours.
You are not going to believe the company.
This company.
You're going to bankrupt your mama's company?
At least I have the radio to keep me company.
On 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
I would like to begin today on this Thursday by asking the following question. For those of you that are listening, for those that are viewing on YouTube, or Eddie Garrison, who joins me here and is proudly wearing his 107.5 The Fan. Is that a T-shirt or a golf shirt you got on there, Eddie?
It's a T-shirt. I'm a company man.
Well, I appreciate you being part of the company today. Which do you feel is a stronger, if you will, jumpstart of like nostalgia and memory? Do you think that, like, which is a stronger sense? When you walk in and you see something that reminds you of something of yesteryear and all of a sudden, like, something you had completely forgot about jumps into your head. When you hear something like a song or something like that that reminds you of yesteryear and something jumps into your head you'd forgotten. Or when you smell something that like makes you immediately think about something of yesteryear. Which of those would be the strongest for you? The one that is has the greatest ability to reawaken something from your long ago past?
Something I see.
Okay. Because I want everybody to see this then. For me, it's, to be honest with you, smell. I know that sounds weird, but let me explain. This time of year, here we are in mid-August, and for most people, I think what I'm about to say would remind you of late August or early September. But either way, if you think about the first week of school when you were in like elementary school, my first recollection is, and I thought about it the other day when I was walking into, I think I was at Target, and I saw the big display of like school supplies. And I so vividly recall that first week of school walking in and getting like my folder or the Trapper Keeper for the year, and then your art box. I don't know if kids even do this anymore. This probably was like passe by 1988.
Art boxes?
Yes.
They were still around when I was in school.
Okay. So in the art box, you had crayons, you had the big rubber eraser, right?
Yeah.
The thing of Elmer's glue.
The thing I can still smell.
Bingo, right? Bingo. You can smell it, right?
Yeah, the big eraser. Oh, yeah.
When I mention it right now, you can smell it.
Yep.
And you can smell everybody right now listening. You can, when you think about the first week of school, you can smell the wood of the fresh sharpened pencil, right?
I can't smell that.
You can hear the sounds of the person over there or sharpening the pencils, or you can smell that rubber eraser for certain. You can smell, this sounds weird, but when I say it to your mind, you can remember the scent of the plastic of the Trapper Keeper folder. And all of it smells like the first week of school. And I do wonder if to an NFL player, that's what today smells like. There's got to be something to a veteran that reminds them of the first preseason game. That first time of, and maybe you can remember if you played sports, because I can recall this as well, that the smell of the rubber of your mouth guard when you put your football helmet on when you were a kid, or whatever it may be. But the feeling, the nostalgia, the emotion that comes with the return to school and summer is over and everything else. And that's where we are now in the football calendar. Yes, I know we still have plenty of training camp to go. Yes, I know we will see very few players tonight that are going to be big time. Now, we'll see some. There will be, and that's why tonight is exciting. Or intriguing, maybe is the better word. There will be a game this year. The Colts are going to have a game this year. Maybe it's late in the year. Maybe it's against Dallas. Maybe it's against the Texans the second time. Whatever it may be. They are going to have a game where they have a guy that is really contributing. And you're going to say to yourself, gosh, don't you remember all the way back in camp or in the preseason? Like, we didn't think anything of it when that guy was making plays. And yet, here he is. There were signs there, and we didn't think anything of it because we assumed that they were rounding out the roster with those that were on the field that day. But it all begins tonight in Foxborough against the Patriots. Lara Overton is going to join us on the program. She will be on the broadcast tonight. She's going to join us at 11:30. And yes, Anthony Richardson is of intrigue. Some of the areas that you need depth will be on display. And we'll get a better glimpse over the course of later today, just exactly, again, who they are beyond the positions that we know for certain. I mean, I think we know that this year's installment of the Colts, I think we know that Tyler Warren is going to be a huge feature piece and only increase in that level of importance. He might be their most important offensive player because he may turn out to be the one that is Jonathan Taylor, yes, but you can get away a little bit, odd as it sounds. You may be able to get away a little bit with not having, if they don't go and get themselves a receiver. And it's hard to believe that that's not going to be the case over the next month. But if they don't and they stay pat, they stay put, they keep it as is, and their receiving core, it probably means two things. Number one, it means that Alec Pierce is, they would assume, going to be, in fact, on the timeline they thought and able to play. And number two, it may mean that they feel Tyler Warren is ready to take that next step of being basically a slot receiver at the tight end position. And then, truthfully, like a Mo Alley Cox becomes important because then what if you need like a big blocking tight end? You go two tight end sets, etc. But there a lot to, again, maybe not over-scrutinize tonight, but to just kind of keep an eye on that is of interest. Eddie, for you tonight, when you look at this preseason game number one, and I mean, take it for what it is, but what is, if anything, the thing that most jumps out at you as what you'll be looking for, if anything?
It's hard to really gauge what we're going to watch tonight, Jake, outside of just what does the consistency look like from the two quarterbacks. Like, I guess you can look at their accuracy or, how they're moving in the pocket or whatever the case may be. But I always find it incredibly challenging to evaluate players in preseason games, especially ones like these tonight, where the starters aren't playing. Like, I know everyone is making a big deal about how Carson Beck performed in the Hall of Fame game. Well, Carson Beck was going against the third-string team for the Carolina Panthers, guys he probably faced off in college, or guys that were on the practice squad. So it's hard to really evaluate and to really gauge, the product that is on the field tonight. So with that being said, I think it honestly starts and ends with the two quarterbacks. And, with the whole eye concerns with Anthony Richardson, does that impact at all his ability to throw the ball down the field? Is he impacted all his ability to see, closer to the line of scrimmage? Is it in those types of questions? And, with Riley Leonard, can he make an improvement or continue to show what he did in that Week 17 game against the Houston Texans, the Week 18 game against the Houston Texans? Is he a guy that can throw the ball down the field consistently? Is he a guy that you can rely on to be the backup quarterback?
I did get an interesting, by the way, message, and I'm curious if folks feel this way. Kevin sent the following social media post to both myself and JMV. Okay? And I did feel like we should perhaps, or I should, at least address this or ask, because it's an arena that I don't want to necessarily get into, and I don't think John does either. Hey, guys, I've listened to you both since your first days. You've put in the time to give your opinions, but going after fans may not be in your best interest. However, there are bigger things coming at everyone that will make this topic go to the back burner soon enough. I don't recall going after Fever fans. And I don't recall going after listeners of this show. That's not to say that we have not said things, or I have not said things that could perhaps be interpreted that way, but it certainly was not with intent. And perhaps the Fever are sitting back with a huge sigh of relief, thrilled that the Colts are playing tonight. Because we do live in this odd news cycle where things seem to have a shelf life of like 2 days. And if you stay on the same subject for more than that, people are like, man, now you're like fueling and feeding an agenda. And as I talked about with the situations, and I've had a lot of discussions, pretty healthy discussions with a lot of listeners of this show, because people will text me and I think about it, and then I call them, as I did yesterday, and said, you know what, I got to thinking more about this, and I appreciate your point. And let me counter with this. And then we discuss it out, and we go, yeah, you know what, there's probably some, and then we talk about other stuff. But the thing about the whole situation, and I bring this up not because it's still forefront, because that would be hypocritical since I said we live in a 24-hour news cycle, right? But again, in really assessing and thinking about and discussing yesterday with people the circumstances around the Fever and the WNBA, there's a lot of discussion and a lot of attachment to that league and where they are that is far beyond the scope or maybe even the intellectual capability of a radio sports host in Indianapolis. When you start getting into some of the discussions that they're getting into, and we saw yesterday, you know, when it comes to, and you know, I said my thing the other day about what I felt in regards to trans athletes and how that the WNBA handles that situation and the way that I thought was the best compromise in all of that. So, I mean, I don't need to bore people by going over all of that once again. But I think when you say, hey, this is unfair that you are critiquing fans of the WNBA or of the Indiana Fever, I totally respect that viewpoint and agree with that. That would be irresponsible or, you know, from a business standpoint, bad form for me to do. But I think what I was pointing out is that so much of the critique of Stephanie White, the critique of the WNBA, if you want to critique that they're not playing defensively well enough, if you want to critique that they're not using the right rotation, if you want to critique that they chose to play the wrong kind of defense or not foul late in a game, those are the kind of things that fans critique. And absolutely, that is a fair and sound and just argument from a fan base. But when you start getting into the social aspect of making the decision as to whether or not you follow a player or you follow a team based strictly on because it is your belief that they have a morality that is different than yours, and that angers you, and you didn't watch games before these discussions came into play, or you still don't watch games, but you jump into the fray in these discussions because it is a vehicle that allows you to illustrate your point in regards to your belief on a social issue or a lifestyle issue or a morality issue or a political issue, and the WNBA or its local franchise is the vehicle that allows you to jump into the fray of that conversation, then I don't know that you would say that is the Fever fans. Do I think there are Fever fans that are unhappy with Stephanie White because they felt that she wasn't demonstrative enough in defending her players when they had been fouled in a very egregious fashion? Yes, I think there are fans that are critical of that. Do I think those fans have a right to be upset with their head coach? Of course. That's part of being a fan. But I also think that there are people that had a preconceived notion going into the season about social aspects of the WNBA that they couldn't wait to find cause to illustrate how the WNBA is a vehicle to put on display certain social aspects that they had opposition to. And the franchise in Indianapolis, Indiana, seemed to be illustrating the dichotomy of said discussion, and therefore those people were going to jump in the fray and get involved and start talking it up and posting on social media and creating all of that noise. And to condemn that, I don't believe, is to condemn fans of the Fever or the WNBA, which I think is basically what we did. Because when people say, hey, I don't like Stephanie White because I think she's not playing this player, or she's not defending this player, or she's not, that's fine. But when you start saying, I don't like her because of, and you list 4 different things that have nothing to do with the game of basketball, that's what we're talking about. And does that mean that you're a fan of basketball, or you're a fan of jumping into the arena of social commentary and discourse? And that's where this, unfortunately, whole conversation point has headed, and why I think there are so many people that are like, can we just get back to basketball and see what they do down the, because they are playing really well. Now, a big measuring stick of that is going to be tomorrow night when they take on Dallas, because if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong here, Eddie, did they not lose? They've only played them once. Did they not lose to them at the beginning of the year?
The season opener, that's the game you're thinking of. I don't think they've played them other than that.
Right. And I think they're a totally – every team is different over the course of time, but I think they're a totally different team than they were at the beginning of the year. A totally different team.
Oh, for sure.
So it will be a good measuring stick. So if you want to be critical of them from a basketball X's and O's standpoint, totally get it. But when it gets into – and again, I don't want to, even though I'm doing it, belabor the point of the social aspect of it. The WNBA is literally – and you could certainly – I mean, they are in a minefield when it comes to some of the different social aspects of it when you consider their fan base, when you consider many of their participants, and et cetera, and that area of it. And the old phrase is they're walking around a landmine with clown shoes on. And I certainly understand there are people that believe the commissioner actually wears clown shoes. I get it. But I just think that we've all kind of spoken our piece as to what we feel about players in terms of their lifestyle, their sexuality, all of those things. And that is discussion now that can, again, take a back seat, and we can go back to talking about the basketball aspect of the Fever. And if folks feel that condemning somebody who is condemning a coach or an athlete strictly based on their away from basketball life, then yes, I think it's fair to say, but are you truly a basketball fan? Tonight, Fernando Mendoza will be making his debut with the Raiders, right? And as he is starting over, he is not the starter, which means presumably, Eddie, he is going to start tonight. And I think what you see with the Raiders and Mendoza, and I know I've made this point 100 times, but I do think that it is interesting in comparison to the Colts. The Colts tonight will start a quarterback in Anthony Richardson. And Anthony Richardson is not alone. Anthony Richardson was once a promising, rising star. Here's the keys to the kingdom, franchise quarterback, top 5 pick. He's ready to go right now, and we're going to let him learn on the job. Peyton Manning was allowed to learn on the job. He threw more interceptions in his rookie year than anybody in the history of the National Football League. But he had to figure it out. Peyton Manning is obviously one of, if not the most, gifted processing, timing, understanding of the game, cerebral quarterbacks of all time. And yet he struggled as a rookie and was allowed the time to figure it out. How many quarterbacks are there in the National Football League of the last 5 years that have been chewed up and spit out? A ton. A ton.
Yeah.
Anthony Richardson's not alone in that regard. And there is one of the most tricky things in all of sports to figure out is to figure out that window of time between, okay, are we still in the window of where this player is allowed to process the arrows flying by them and learn and grow from it, a la Peyton Manning in his rookie year throwing more interceptions than anybody as a rookie in the history of the National Football League? Or are we now at the point of doing irreversible damage to the confidence, the feel, and the timing of a player? And I have no idea what that window is. And it doesn't even mean, I don't even mean as a rookie, just a young quarterback learning the feel of the position. Michael Penix Jr. is a classic example. You know, he's probably not going to maintain as a starter. Now, he's had injury, I understand. But how long do you give it before you say, and then sometimes guys, Sam Darnold, sometimes guys just need a change of scenery. But in the case of Anthony Richardson, I know I've made this point before. Fernando Mendoza went and played in the Pac-10, Pac-12, whatever you want to call it then, for a good program in Cal. Now, Cal football is not a cradle of quarterbacks per se, except for that they actually have produced more Super Bowl starting quarterbacks than any school in the United States. So clearly it's a good league. And, you know, and you're playing good competition. Fernando Mendoza, and not only that, University of California is one of the elite academic institutions in America. Fernando Mendoza went there, played there, threw for 3,500 yards, started, 3 seasons there, graduated from school there, so he was clearly there a while and had plenty of experience under his belt, transfers to Indiana, learns the offense at Indiana, makes every single play that you could ever ask for yourself at Indiana, wins the national championship, wins the Heisman Trophy, is the number 1 selection in the NFL draft. And I'm not saying that it's going to last for the totality of the season or even months. But even with that, the Las Vegas Raiders say to themselves, before we hand him the keys, we need to bring in a veteran that can lighten the load a little bit, that can take some of the snaps that he can learn from, with all of that pedigree that he can learn from. And tonight, we're going to see, starting at quarterback, a guy that came out of college with 13 starts. He won 7 of them. I believe those numbers are accurate. And the Colts handed him the keys and said, figure it out. Well, he didn't.
Here's the thing, Jake. You know, Chris Ballard has already said publicly that if he could do it over again, he would and not start Anthony. However, if it was the other way around and Richardson was on the bench and then let's say it was Gardner Minshew starting and Gardner Minshew is the one who gets hurt against the Tennessee Titans and Richardson is finishing out the season for whatever the final 8 to 10 weeks and he lights it up and has a great year and it's like, oh, look, they found their guy. He would have been like, yeah, see, we knew we had that in him. We should have started him sooner. So
hindsight's always 20/20. I get it.
I get it. That's what I'm about to get here at. And to me, I think it's all dependent upon the situation that they're walking into. Patrick Mahomes with Kansas City is another one that you can look back at, you know, that he sat and he had to learn. But there were things he had to learn mechanically. Andy Reid's system, very challenging. I get that. On the Richardson front, he needed to play. He couldn't afford to sit, in my opinion. Even though many people still say he should have, I don't think he should have, because in the NFL, there is no development for just sitting behind someone and watching. He needed to play to get the development to get better on the field. Now, how they handled it all with the competition of it is the part where they erred. competing with Gardner Minshew was not the right decision there. They should have gone with somebody else that was a more veteran that he had to prove it more against.
Well, and Eddie, the other trick is this. There's another trick that comes into play with that, and we've seen both sides of it here in Indianapolis. And I'll tell you what that is on the other side. Lara Overton joins us. Tony East going to join us as well. NBA schedule released today, is that right?
Yes, I believe so.
Do we know what time that's happening?
No.
I think B Swift, who actually does the emceeing, of course you hear him on our sister station here, but B Swift, who is the, in-game host for your Pacer games. I think he might join us when the schedule comes out, and we're going to hobnob over that as well. And before we're off the air today, we may know whether or not my trademark is the most genius thing ever. We'll get into that as well. But when we come back, I'll tell you what it is that we've seen from both sides from the Colts and where hindsight 2020 maybe, but where they might have been a little bit stuck on Eddie's theory. We'll get into it next.
You're listening to Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Now, the Colts got really mad several years ago. Not several. When Eric Schultz once, we had a whole bit of kind of making fun of the musical selections that they'd play at Colts games.
Where's your third down? That's the third down song.
It's third down.
Oh,
Isn't that how they do it?
That's a D. That's a D. Need more energy. Need more effort.
Do they have that? I mean, it's third. That's how they do it, though, right?
Yes.
It's third down, right? And then, okay. And I still, when I think of the Colts music that they would play, you would get that. You would get I'm trying to think of the other bang on the drum all day.
Jack and Diane going from the third to the fourth quarter.
Yeah, but that's only been of late.
I mean, like it's not there anymore.
Oh, it's not.
Mm-mm. They go to a DJ now.
See, I remember a couple of years ago when Bill Polian allowed the players to select some of the songs, and I don't know if they were punking him or what, but they played some song that had like 19 F-bombs in the first 30 seconds, and all heck broke loose. Do you remember that? One time.
No, I don't remember.
I think that was in the RCA Dome days back when they were getting angry at people for saying they were pumping in music or pumping in sound, fake crowd noise, etc. But the playlist, if you will, to be honest with you, it probably many of the songs I'm talking about probably have not been used for 10 years, but because they were for the first 35, it's like it automatically takes you there. I mean, bang on the drum all day would be the big one. The Pacers do the same thing, whatever else. When Peyton Manning was, and I know if I'm the guy driving, I think about this all the time. If I'm driving from Kansas City to Philadelphia, and I'm driving through Indianapolis right now, and I hit scan on my radio, and I land on a sports talk radio station, I'm immediately calling my buddies saying, it is so pathetic, man. I was driving through Indianapolis, and like the dude on the radio, they're still talking about the Peyton Manning era. I mean, give me a break. Like, we're Chiefs fans. We got Patrick Mahomes. You don't see us sitting around talking about and taking calls about Lynn Dawson and Barry Word and Christian Okoye. We've got our own era of greatness. They're still talking. That tells you what you need to know about the Colts. No, but
or
it
Alex
gives you,
Smith.
What's that?
Or Alex Smith.
Or Alex Smith. It gives you barometer.
Instead, we get Patrick Mahomes.
I'm not going to lie to you. One of the things that I find joy in life's simple pleasures, right? I've always said, you need to, even though we live basically in a cashless society, every year around Memorial Day, I make sure that I've got like 10 $1 bills in my car. Not because I'm getting ready to head to Pendleton Pike. No, because you got to have extra cash for when you see a kid in the neighborhood doing a lemonade stand. And you always pay them like 3 times what they're asking for their lemonade. And you probably, you fake the sip and tell them it's great because who knows, they're using their hand to mix that stuff. Mm-hmm. And then you go on about your way. But it's a simple pleasure. The joy of seeing that kid smile when you buy that lemonade and their feeling of accomplishment is a simple joy. There's nothing quite like when you pull up at a stoplight. It happened to me yesterday. And I heard this barking, and I look over, and there's a dog, and he's got his head hanging, and you get nervous because you think, oh, gosh, what if you get too close? They somehow just seem to know. But watching a dog feel the wind go through their fur when they're sitting there hanging out of a car, that's a simple pleasure. That's one of those things in life that you look at and you just say, that just makes me happy. And I'm not going to lie to you, Eddie. I'm not trying to equate you to a kid at a lemonade stand or a dog with your head out the window. But when I'm doing this program and I look through either on the YouTube or I look through that window and I see you make some sort of a joke that I can tell you're incredibly proud of and you yourself can't even restrain your own grin, it's a simple pleasure for me.
Is it really?
Yes. I can tell when you have self-pride. and that
You know,
translates.
I work so hard sometimes on these the voices. You're not gonna fall for a banana on the tailpipe.
Yes. See, it's just, when you do that and you can then laugh at yourself, it gives me great joy. And that's because, right, I know that, and you've heard me talk about this, I can now understand and relate to and respect what it's like to be a veteran quarterback and know that you have a young quarterback that is brought in that is there to either A, they have already taken your job, B, they are the standing in the way of the next rung of the ladder that you're looking towards, or C, you just know that they're the future and you are the present but not the long-term future. And that can be for a lot of quarterbacks in any job, in any position, in any situation, that can be a challenge, and the way that you handle it and the way that you embrace it and the way that you or don't, right? And so when you bring in veteran quarterbacks, when you have a young quarterback like a Peyton Manning in 98, and I can't even recall the player's name, but I remember in training camp in Anderson, the Colts had a quarterback that did not make the final roster, I don't believe, but he was brought in for camp. He had played at Navy and had been in the league as a journeyman for 5 or 6 years. And I think he was there as much as anything else just to offer to Peyton Manning the guidance of everything that goes into being a quarterback. And it didn't take them long to figure out, okay, this guy doesn't need this. He is of a different level. He came in, he's got Bruce Arians here as his quarterback's coach. So Manning is maybe even the exception to the rule. But even with Peyton Manning, who was interviewed when he was like 2 years old, who's your favorite player? I'd probably say my dad. And he'd been around the NFL his entire life. Even with that, there was the necessity of having a veteran in there to give him guidance. And then if you look during his career, and I know that ultimately Jim Sorgi was the backup that was known most linked to him, but they brought in Mark Rippon, and they brought in guys in the twilight of their career just to be there as a sounding board. Not that he needed it, but not every veteran wants to be that guy. There are veterans that are like, yeah, my job is not to come in here and like mold people.
That was Joe Flacco.
Correct. My job is not to be here as I'm here to play quarterback and win that job and keep that job. If a young guy can learn from the way I do it, fine, but I'm not going to sit down and hold their hand. And so finding a veteran quarterback like that is one that is not only willing, but has kind of their own confidence level to understand that reality is a challenge. And I think very few, we can talk all day long, as we have, about whether or not there are actually 32 men walking planet Earth that are full, capable NFL talent level starting quarterbacks. The other question is, are there another 18 of them that are full, capable, mindset teaching backups? And that's the other aspect that comes into play when we talk about the situation with Richardson. There are not a lot of those guys, and maybe the Colts get benefit of the doubt there in the fact that, Gardner Minshew, and I don't know what Gardner Minshew's thought process was on that, but it is a special kind of a quarterback that not only can be a starter in the NFL, but one who can then, after being a starter in the NFL, and maybe not being an overly successful one, but being one good enough to last for a while, that can then come in and have that level of understanding, maturity, and confidence in themselves to say, you know what, I will groom the next guy. And truth be told, Peyton Manning, part of why Peyton Manning ended up in Denver is because when he and Jim Irsay sat there on that airplane trying to figure out exactly what they were going to do with Andrew Luck waiting in the wings, and Manning basically, in not so many words, said, I'm not interested in tutoring a quarterback. I am a starting quarterback in the National Football League. And you have a guy there that doesn't need tutor probably and is the closest thing to me in terms of he's going to figure it out on his own. And so that's not going to work. But with Richardson, if you go back and look at the way that they handled it, I mean, maybe in fact it was, and the Colts they've had players like a Mark Rippon that were willing to be it. They've had other players that were not. And maybe they knew in the case of Richardson, you know what? We're just going to let him go out there and figure it out on his own. Now, my trademark, Eddie, and I just had to talk to an attorney about this. My trademark is not only still good and in valid standing, but it may, in fact, I'm crossing my fingers. It maybe has been never more applicable when it comes to the National Football League than it may be 77 minutes from right now with my trademark. And it has to do with, could one team in the NFL actually, when it comes to my trademark and this state, be changing their name and their location? I don't think so, but we're going to discuss it next.
You're listening to Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Here we go, baby. George Wansley just took it in from 3 yards out. Colts have cut the Bills' lead to 38-6. Dean Biasucci out shortly to attempt the extra point. So later today, and by later I mean apparently at noon Eastern, so 71 minutes from right now, the Chicago Bears and their executives are expected to, in a press conference, deliver an update and some believe a decision, an announcement regarding their stadium plans and whether or not, in fact, they are on their way to Hammond, Indiana. Now, this is in Wolf Lake, which has kind of a dubious history in the state of Indiana. But that area near Hammond, there are now reports that, people are saying, there were trucks there. It looks like they're starting to do some construction work. And this has gone back and forth and back and forth. And I can recall, as we talked about those first days of school when you're a kid and the smell of the rubber eraser and the plastic of the Trapper Keeper or the fresh folder that you bought on, and Eddie doesn't remember this, but I do, the sound of or the smell of the freshly sharpened trusty pencils. All of those things that go with this August start of a new year. And I can recall in those days, I don't know why I so vividly recall the headline, but I remember in those days, and it would not have been, obviously, it would have been later in the school year. But I remember the newspaper headline, and for some reason it was sitting on the desk. It was sitting on the desk of Mrs. Umamura at Allisonville Elementary School. But I remember the headline, and it said, Colts move from Baltimore back on front burner. I remember that headline like it was yesterday from the Indianapolis Star. And that headline of back on the front burner is because their move from Baltimore and Indianapolis's placement with that was not just a 2-month story. I mean, the Colts, and everybody knows this. Bob Irsay was going to go to Phoenix. Bob Irsay was going to go to Memphis. Bob Irsay was going to go to Indianapolis. Bob Irsay was going to go to Boston. It was all over the place. And when the Colts did finally move, when the Mayflower trucks pulled out, there were like 5 trucks that were sent in 5 different directions, and each truck, as they were loaded up, and literally the Colts went to the University of Maryland in College Park and said to like fraternities, hey, which you guys wants to make $20 an hour loading trucks? And a bunch of fraternity guys showed up at the Colts complex, and it literally was like pouring stuff out of people's desks into a box and writing on the top of it the name of whose desk it was and putting it on the back of a truck. And then all these trucks were loaded up, and even the truck drivers didn't know exactly where it was that they were to go because they didn't even go straight to Indianapolis. They drove and they went in multiple directions until then they got the assignment, okay, reroute and now head to Indy, because they didn't want any television crews or anything else to know specifically where it was they were going. It was that until the 11th and then 12th hour that people knew exactly where it was going. So the history of moves for a franchise is not one based on precedent that happens in short fashion. The same thing with the Rams. When I was in St. Louis and there was talk that Kroenke was going to move them back to Los Angeles and then, of course, the move to St. Louis, all of it. Doesn't happen in a vacuum and it doesn't happen overnight. But this press conference that is taking place, one of the things that is being discussed about it, some are saying that this is just going to be the Bears giving an update like a State of the Union address. Others are saying, no, this is an announcement of finality that they are moving. And I think the vast majority of people, their thought process is, I'll believe it when a shovel goes into the dirt. But one of the allegations, one of the assumptions, one of the rumors out there is that the Bears, and I know this sounds crazy, that the Bears will explore the discussion of actually being the Indiana Bears. Now, we both know there's zero chance that's going to happen, but it wouldn't surprise me if the Bears, and hear me here, okay? If the Bears leak that out there or don't dispute or diminish that absurd rumor, because the Bears know this is going to be to their fan base and to the traditionalists and their loyalists a huge PR cleanup if, in fact, they leave the city of Chicago. I'm not saying they're going to, but if, in fact, they do, they know there's going to be an outcry. So if you can not dismiss to people immediately the notion that they're going to even change the name from Chicago, then once you make that announcement that you're leaving and you say, but we'll always be the Chicago Bears, and you put out a video of the history of Chicago and the city of big shoulders and all of that, and then you say, same name, new home, and people go, oh, thank goodness, it's still the Chicago Bears. We still love Chicago. And that allows them to smoothen and lighten that strike to the traditionalist. But, of course, if they become, and maybe now, in teasing that to their fan base, we need to get some T-shirts and some merchandise up there. Why not Indiana? Which is trademarked, by the way. I'm just saying, Eddie, we can enjoy ourselves a couple of extra patties from Jamaica if that comes to fruition, right? For what it's worth. Colts in action tonight. Lara Overton going to join us in just about 30 minutes. Also, news on when we believe now we will know the Pacers' exact schedule. I'll tell you that other side. Hey, there's Jake Query for Chicago's Pizza. By the way, it is always going to be Chicago's Pizza, which is the best, but from right here in central Indiana. 19 locations in central Indiana, 26 across the state, and the very best when it comes to the lunch buffet. Matter of fact, lunch buffet getting underway right now. You're driving around, you're thinking about where to go to lunch. I'm telling you right now, straight to Chicago's Pizza, because you get traditional pizza. You get deep dish pizza if that is actually what is your thought. You also can get the dessert pizza, the fresh hand-rolled breadsticks, salad bar with all the fixings. If you want to go lighter today, no problem. You get all of those options plus a soft drink for a price that is better than what you're going to pay across the street. Chicago's Pizza is committed to community, and they are committed to fresh pizza every single day. That's what we love about Chicago's Pizza. Don't forget, dinner time, the family meal deal, 2 medium, 1 topping pizzas, and a fresh order of breadsticks, all for just $25. Chicago's Pizza, the lunch buffet now until 1:30, chicagospizza.com.
It's Query and Company.
I'm going to be keeping you company for the next few hours.
You are not going to believe the company.
This company.
You're going to bankrupt your mama's company.
At least I have the radio to keep me company.
On 93.5 and 107.5, The Fan.
By the way, and there's nothing more tired than when people make the joke of like, what's the bright orbital thing in the sky? But on a Thursday here in which the Colts will get underway in the preseason with their slate of games tonight, game number 1 of the preseason in New England, sun is peering out. I think it's supposed to be cloudy again by the late afternoon, but
some rain showers tonight around 10 o'clock potentially, Jake.
Yeah,
in the central Indianapolis area.
I saw yesterday, and I get it. I mean, there are a number of factors, scientifically speaking, that go beyond my lack or my level of understanding, scientifically speaking. But it rained, and then all of a sudden, I mean, I saw some pretty terrible and troubling videos of just people's houses flooded, and in particular in eastern Indiana, over near Cambridge City, across towards Rushville and in those areas, and certainly hope the best for all of those folks. I can't imagine. I was visiting my dad yesterday, and Brandon, who's an IHSA official and works in some physical therapy with my dad and other people. He's worked his magic. He was there and was showing me a video of friends and relatives from outside Muncie and then south of their houses, with just stuff floating around. I mean, I can't imagine the heartache, the heartbreak, beyond the obvious reasons of what would be tough. But, certainly hope the best for everybody. And the one thing that is great about this state, Rush County, Moscow, Indiana. I mean, I know that town, and I know that town only because years ago when I was doing the morning radio program with Terry Stacy, they had a tornado that went through there, and one of their covered bridges was flattened. And it's a little town. It's a little community. It's a small county. But that covered bridge meant so much to those people and their covered bridge festival and the heritage of what it means. To lose things like that, I saw it. I saw how much it hurt those people and how much it troubled and bothered them to see part of their history, taken away from a natural disaster. And then I saw what is the thing that makes this state unique, the thing that makes Indiana different. And I know that other states talk about it. There's a pride of people that live in Texas about Texas. They have state flags that are literally the size of the Salesforce Tower flying over gas stations. And I know the pride that people have in the South about their heritage and their history and Dixie and all of those things. But we talk about Hoosier hospitality. And I think that when you talk about Hoosier hospitality, the obvious connection there is that you're talking about when people visit Indiana and how we put our best foot forward to make sure that they enjoy our state. But I think Hoosier hospitality, sometimes we know it. The old hashtag, if you know, you know. I think if you live in Indiana and you are a Hoosier, you know that what Hoosier hospitality truly means in its essence is an appreciation and having each other's back. We come from all different walks. We come from all different, backgrounds, so many different things. But the one thing that the tie that binds all of us is we are all at our core a Hoosier. And whether you're a Hoosier from Gary or a Hoosier from Evansville or a Hoosier from Winnemac or a Hoosier from Winchester, you at least know the connection to the fact that you are from Indiana. And with that comes a responsibility, but also just an obligation that we all accept and embrace to look out for each other. And you hope the best for what looks to be a lot of flooding and natural disaster here within this state. It is the national headline of flooding in Indiana. And my assumption is that the time is going to quickly come here where we're going to have to step up again and help out our neighbors and our fellow Hoosiers. And in that capacity, I ask that all of you not only hope the best for our fellow citizens, but also be willing to step in if there is a way, once it's announced that we can do so, to help out. And that's just part of what makes this state great. It's why I love it, and it's why I bleed the torch. There's also a great, not only a present in terms of the sports legacy in this state, like, for example, the Colts playing tonight, like, for example, that we know that the Pacers are going to play a preseason game coming up in October in Iowa at Iowa State University, where Tyrese Halliburton presumably is going to play his first action on display against another team, and it's going to be right there in the arena where he became a college star, which is very cool. And later today, it is my understanding now that we have some clarity, it may be 3 o'clock, right when John goes on, that the NBA schedule is, in fact, dropped, as the kids say. And so we'll keep an eye on that. But also news in terms of the past and the present, and it's on a smaller scale. But Eddie is the one that just discovered this, and I'll be honest. I heard this news, and I said to myself, we need to triple check this. We need to verify this as to whether or not this is accurate. I need to get to the bottom of this exact story, right? Well, before we say what the news is, Eddie, let me give this little background. Robin Miller was the best of us. Robin Miller was literally, when Robin Miller passed away, a huge part of sports lore in Indiana left us. because there was no one that knew more about this town and its history of sport. No one that was more connected than Robin Miller, and no one that more connected its sports figures than Robin. Robin Miller is the only guy that I knew that when he would call Mario Andretti was actually excited that Robin Miller called him. When he would call Eric Dickerson knew who Robin Miller was. When Robin Miller, I mean, there could be two athletes that were at complete odds with one another, but their tie that bound them was Robin Miller. It was the most amazing thing ever. And he was an encyclopedia of sport about the history of sport, not just the statistics and the teams, but the backstories and the personalities that interwove within Indianapolis lore. And I can tell you that one of Robin Miller's favorite teams, one of his favorite assignments, one of the things that he took the most pride in, he loved Rick Mount. Robin Miller loved Rick Mount, and Robin Miller loved to tell the story about how Pro Keds had a contract for Rick Mount that paid him X amount of dollars, and one of a commissioner or somebody for San Antonio in the ABA was trying to get Rick Mount to come out of retirement and play for them, and Rick Mount said, I got my Pro Keds money, I'm good. And so they called Robin Miller and said, can you get Rick Mount to sign with us? Literally tell him, we will put an X on the floor. He does not have to play defense. He can stand on that X and shoot the ball every time we come down the floor. And Rick Mount wouldn't do it. But Robin was the guy they went to. Neto and McGinnis and Roger Brown, all those guys. He loved the ABA. He loved Southport. He loved the 500, all of those things.
Neto,
Neto-Licky, like going to Neto's, all that, right? But one of the things that Robin Miller loved was talking about the privilege that he saw it in covering the Indianapolis Capitals. The Indianapolis Capitals, which were a semi-pro football team that won championships, I believe, in 1968 and 1969, and were around for just over a half a decade in central Indiana. I have a Capitals t-shirt that, just one of those old school nostalgic things. And it was an older brand that it's a tribute to yesteryear. And there have been a number of different entities of semi-pro football, indoor football, etc., that have come and tried their hand through Indianapolis and tried to revitalize and tried to come back. I think there was the Tornadoes, the Indiana Tornadoes. Barry Krause was involved in that. There have been a number of them. I mean, obviously the Fisher's Freight right now from an indoor standpoint, the Indiana Firebirds. But now we know, Eddie, with your breaking news sounder, the Capitals are coming back, but it is the person that they have tabbed to run and build their franchise that makes this, I think, super fun.
Hey, Mike, Peyton Manning here. Congratulations on being named head coach of the Indianapolis Capitals. Mike, we spent a lot of years together in Indianapolis, and I know firsthand how competitive you are, how much you understand the game, and how much you love the sport of football and the city of Indianapolis. So I'm very excited to see you take on this next challenge. So I'm wishing you, your players, your staff, and everybody involved a great first season. I'm a little curious why you hired Donovan Bailey as your speed coach instead of me with my blazing speed. Still trying to figure that one out. And Mike, just remember, if your team ever needs a 55-yarder in the snow to send a game into overtime and a 53-yarder in the snow in overtime to win it, suit up, get out there, and make it again just like you did in our game against Denver 25 years ago. Congrats again, Mike. Best of luck.
That is Peyton Manning congratulating Mike Vanderjagt, who has been on this program, and believe you me, I'm attempting to get back on this program, Mike Vanderjagt, to talk about his new job. Mike Vanderjagt, as the general manager and head coach, the CEO, I think, and head coach of the Indianapolis Capitals. I think the thing that's fun about it is it right there. What you just heard, I think, illustrates It's the perfect timing for that. The perfect timing for that. Let's go back to the Pro Bowl. Let's go back to the comments from Peyton Manning. I can remember them almost verbatim. Pro Bowl, Lynn Swann talking to Peyton Manning, and he's asked about when Mike Vanderjagt did a sit-down interview in Canada on a Canadian television station, and Vanderjagt said that the thing about Manning and Tony Dungy was that sometimes he questioned their competitive fire. And he said, I remember like with Manning, but there are games where I'm like, Peyton, come on, let's go. And I just don't see it in him. And so that was interpreted as Vanderjagt essentially saying what many fans at that time were saying, which was, boy, there's something about Peyton Manning in big games. He just can't get it done, which in hindsight is absurd. So Manning was asked about it, and that's when he gave the famous line, and I can repeat it almost verbatim. Listen, Alan, Dan, I mean, we're here at the Pro Bowl. I'm getting ready to throw a touchdown pass, and I can't remember what receiver it was that he said. We got guys we got Vinatieri and Akers. These guys are great guys. They're getting killed all week because we're talking about our idiot kicker that got liquored up and ran his mouth. And listen, I'll deal with it when I get home if he's still a teammate. But I mean, right now we're here to celebrate these great players in the Pro Bowl. And boom. And I was there. I was there in Hawaii when it happened. Boom. It's forever etched in lore. And Peyton Manning and Mike Vanderjagt are forever linked together. And yes, it's 28 years after the fact. Well, less than that, I guess. 25 since he hit the Pro Bowl. That situation was 03, 04, somewhere in there, 02. But either way, 20 plus years. And now we find out the real story. And we found it out when Vanderjagt joined us, when Vanderjagt came on with me. And Vanderjagt said, look, every year on my birthday, I get the text from Peyton Manning, and, we've stayed close this whole time. And Peyton Manning does that video for Mike Vanderjagt. It's a small thing. It's a small thing.
It was Jerry Rice.
It was Jerry Rice?
Yeah.
Who was Rice with at that time? Would he have been
remember.
with the Raiders? Because he'd have been in the AFC, right? Are you listening to the clip?
No, somebody in.
I thought it was Jerry Rice, but then I'm like, wait a minute. He would have been with the AFC, and Jerry Rice would have been with the NFC, I think, unless Rice was with the Raiders at that time, right? I'm getting ready to go in here. I'm going to throw a touchdown pass to Jerry Rice, and we got guys like Akers and Vinatieri. These guys have been getting killed all week because our idiot kicker got liquored up and ran his mouth. And I'll deal with it when I get home, and we'll find out if he's still a teammate. Almost verbatim. And I love Mike Vanderjagt. When Mike Vanderjagt missed that kick against the Pittsburgh Steelers, you've heard me say this, but I'm going to say it again. I'll never forget walking in that locker room, and Mike Vanderjagt was standing right there at his locker with both hands on his shoulder pads, clenched, and he's like, all right, guys, I know you got questions, and I'm going to have to give answers. And Mike Vanderjagt sat there and answered every single question. He did not back down from any of it. He didn't run from any of it. And we thought that there was this rift. We thought that Peyton Manning and Vanderjagt hated one another. They couldn't stand one another. That was going to be an issue forever. That was going to plague that locker room. Does this sound familiar? When you look at sport today in central Indiana and what we've been talking about for the last week, does this sound familiar? And is it possible? Is it possible that actually what we find out is that when two people are teammates, two people are colleagues, two people are coworkers, two people are competitors, that there is an intensity that comes from within, that actually it's a matter of those two people just figuring out how to channel and fuel together and funnel together that energy into the common cause, the commonality of teamwork. I think we talked about this yesterday, did we not? There is so much seemingly desire for people to want Caitlin Clark and Stephanie White to not get along, for Sophie Cunningham and Stephanie White to not get along, for Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham and the rest of their team to not get along. But strange things happen when you get that many people that are competitors, and they may come from totally different places, but then all of a sudden they have a tie that binds them, which is a common desire to win. Now listen to this one more time. I'm going to play it one more time, partially because I know a lot of you love to hear from Peyton Manning. I get it. As do I. Covered him from the time he was drafted to the time he retired. But here is Peyton Manning. Keep in mind all of those conversations you had. Keep in mind all those times that you snickered to your friends and called Vanderjagt the idiot kicker or the liquored up kicker. Keep in mind all those times that you just assumed or made a joke when it was Peyton Manning's Hall of Fame induction. You're like, I guarantee you one guy ain't going to be there. And keep in mind when Mike Vanderjagt came on this program and said that, in fact, he and Peyton Manning were friends and were very close with one another. The reason that made headlines, the reason that was of interest, the reason that was of newsflash was because people were like, wait a minute, these guys actually got along? What about that moment? And then, even though it's been a long time, I realize, you hear this.
Hey, Mike, Peyton Manning here. Congratulations on being named head coach of the Indianapolis Capitals. Mike, we spent a lot of years together in Indianapolis, and I know firsthand how competitive you are, how much you understand the game, and how much you love the sport of football and the city of Indianapolis. So I'm very excited to see you take on this next challenge. So I'm wishing you, your players, your staff, and everybody involved a great first season. I'm a little curious why you hired Donovan Bailey as your speed coach instead of me with my blazing speed. Still trying to figure that one out. And Mike, just remember, if your team ever needs a 55-yarder in the snow to send a game into overtime and a 53-yarder in the snow in overtime to win it, suit up, get out there, and make it again just like you did in our game against Denver 25 years ago. Congrats again, Mike. Best of luck.
And again, Mike Vanderjagt announced today as the team president, or excuse me, the general manager and head coach of the Indianapolis Capitals. Again, I mean, the Continental Football League. This is not like it's some, oh my gosh, USFL trying to compete against the NFL. It is a smaller league, obviously, but it's the fact that Vanderjagt, I think there's a lesson to be learned there. For Vanderjagt, he was pretty open about the fact that I think when Vanderjagt, and part of probably why he's taken this gig, is because he does have a love for Indianapolis, and I think this is his way to say, guys, I know that you are upset with me because of the way it ended, but I've never been upset with Indy, and it's always been a special place to me. I can assure you that is the case with Mike Vanderjagt. I can assure you of that he feels that way. And so, yes, it is not some massive major coup of this huge league that is going to be a big-time thing. I'm not saying that. But I do think it's symbolic, and it's also symbolic because of who it is that he chose and got to make the announcement for him, basically, because it just, again, goes to show. Oftentimes, those relationships, those things behind the scenes, inside of a locker room, inside of the meeting rooms, there's more to it than what we truly see on the surface. And I think there's probably a lesson to be had there. It is the Colts in action tonight in New England. Lara Overton. Now, Lara's over in, are they in Providence? Do we know? Providence?
I believe the Colts are in Boston.
You think she's at Cheers right now?
I don't know.
Fenway? Have you been to Boston?
No.
You have baked beans? Boston baked beans?
No.
Clam chowder? They have
I've
clam
had
chowder
Bush's
there?
baked beans.
Huh?
I've had Bush's baked beans.
Yeah, they're not bad, right? Lara Overton will be on the broadcast for the game and joins us next.
Barry and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
All right, Colts in action tonight, taking on the New England Patriots in Foxborough. And I don't know much, but I know this. I know that we are midway through August, and I don't make light of the weather considering some of the terrible images that we've seen throughout the state of Indiana, but I will make light of this. If the game is in Foxborough tonight, what I know is it's going to be 42 degrees and rainy with blowing rain and then mist, and you won't be able to see half the screen because it's going to be steamed and fogged over. Isn't that every game the Colts have ever played in New England?
I thought that was just every game in New England in general.
Totally. Like I said, the AFC East and the NFC East, those are the two, seemingly, they only play at like 4:30 on Sundays when it's already dark outside and rainy, and you turn it on and it literally is just like, ugh. I mean, the Jets and the Eagles are playing, and you're like, oh, my gosh, 60 Minutes is about to start. My mom's going to tell me to start doing my homework. I'm depressed. It just always feels that way. But not tonight, because it is the preseason, and it gives us a chance to see some names that maybe we will become familiar with over the course of the year. Maybe they're putting their last push forward. Lara Overton will be working the broadcast. On the television side of things tonight, she will be, of course, part of the radio broadcast during the course of the regular season and joins us now on the Schwab Men's 2-in-1 hotline. Lara, I will begin with this. For you personally, and I know that you guys are obviously looking at, position battles and some of those that will be playing tonight that may not be on the roster here in a month. But the storyline that to this point most intrigues you would be what?
Gosh, a storyline that most intrigues me, I think right now, I think the backup quarterback situation is obviously that's headlined everything. But really for me, it's the depth at wide receiver is where I have put a lot of my focus throughout training camp. And of course, there are questions regarding Alec Pierce and his timeline. And then when Josh Downs missed a couple of practices, which was great to see him back out there for the joint practice on Tuesday. But beyond that, what does this group of pass catchers look like for Daniel Jones? Like, Daniel Jones has become, thankfully, a non-storyline to this point because he's looked so good. No signs at all of being hindered with his mobility coming off of the Achilles. So now it's all about who's around him. With the departure of Michael Pittman Jr., there are some voids to be filled within this offense. And, you're certainly going to see more once Alec Pierce gets out there. But in these first, just over 2 weeks of camp, you've really wanted to see that group be solidified with who is going to be your true number 3, who's going to be the 4th guy out there in rotation.
Will they try, Lara? And I'm not saying that it would work. But is there the possibility that so far we have yet to see them address the receiver situation because that receiver and that person that can fill the void of Michael Pittman over the middle type stuff is, in fact, Tyler Warren? And they're going to use him, and maybe Mo Alley Cox becomes more important there because you got to go 2 tight end set to have one there blocking. But they will use Warren in the receiver as opposed to traditional tight end role. Is that a possibility?
It's an absolute possibility. And because of the way Tyler Warren navigated and produced so well in his rookie season, you want to put more on his plate. He has shown that he's capable. Even last year in his first year, he was clearly capable of handling an even greater workload. And he's so incredibly versatile. He made huge plays in the joint practice just 2 days ago. And the first opportunity you had to see him go up against another defense and a very good New England Patriots defense at that. So absolutely, that's part of the plan to have a heavier dose of Tyler Warren in the passing game. But that depth certainly still going, to be tested to some degree. And Alec, I think, too, is another one that he has his calling card, his signature has been being the deep ball downfield guy. But I think you're going to see him maybe even expand his realm too, and not just be that guy, the deep ball threat, but he's going to have to be engaged in some of those more intermediate style between the numbers plays.
From what you have seen, Lara Overton, what is at this point from your eye, right? I know you're not there all the time, but you are in practices and those sorts of things. What's the maximum amount of movement that you have seen from Alec Pierce at this point in terms of what he is doing to get back out there?
He was doing work on the side with trainers on Tuesday. I actually didn't come in until Wednesday, so I did not get to witness that work, but obviously I heard that from everyone around. So that's a huge sign of progress, obviously, for him to be doing that amount of work. But other than that, it was really, and he's out there at practice every day. He's with the group. Reggie Wayne joked that he's getting sick of him because Alec is just next to Reggie during practices, and he's ready to get Alec, out there rather than being in his ear during all of those practices. So I'm interested to see today that they will have some. Even the guys who don't play will go out and go through kind of a warm up and a typical pregame. So that's something I will be watching just for pure interest. Is what work does Alec Pierce possibly do when the team gets to Foxborough later this afternoon?
By the way, and I'm curious, so Lara Overton joins us, and we've got you on the YouTube here as well. And so you're enjoying your beverage there. Now, I know that when and I find this fascinating, when Shannon and I travel anywhere, the first thing that I'm put in charge of is finding out where I can get her grande skinny vanilla latte, right? Now, I don't even know what half of that means, but I'm curious what it is there that you are consuming.
I just have black coffee. And I should have probably, in Boston fashion, I should have gone to a Dunkin' Donuts, but the Starbucks was right downstairs, so I just
I'm
did
surprised they have Starbucks in Boston because, like, Dunkin' Donuts is a religion there, right?
I know. It seems like that this would be, outlawed.
Isn't it just
parts,
Dunkin'?
But
I think they dropped the
it
donuts.
is just
part.
Dunkin'.
Right.
You're right, because I walked past one earlier today. I went to Soul Cycle and did pass a Dunkin',
You went
as
to
they say.
Soul Cycle?
Yeah. Are you not familiar with the Soul Cycle?
Eddie, are you familiar with the Soul Cycle?
I'm not.
I'm going to guess that
It's a spin class.
I was going to say, is this like I've got a membership. I'm not going to say which one it is, Lara, but I have a membership to a gym that has multiple locations throughout the United States and is very inexpensive. And the only reason I have said membership is because I can go and shower before I go to an airport after races, which I think is actually a brilliant move, right?
Yeah.
But I did learn that you got to bring your own towel, and I went once, and it was next to a Dollar Tree, and the only towels they had were dish towels, and that was a chore. But drying with those, yes. But so is this a Soul Cycle? Is this like a spin chain where you can go to like multiple locations across the country and get your spin on?
You can. Unfortunately, we don't have one in Indy, but there are locations all across the country. So whenever we are traveling, I try to get in and take a class. But
wait,
yes, you can buy.
So you have a membership to a place that you can't even use when you're at home, only for when you're on the road.
Well, you can buy a package of classes. So if you buy you can buy 5, you can buy a single, but you can have 5 classes or 10 classes at once, and then you just work through them. It's not like a monthly fee that I'm paying for something I'm not able to use. But yeah, I've hit a lot of the locations. Denver has a really good Soul Cycle. LA has Soul Cycle. Dallas, Chicago.
Okay. I went through a period of time for a couple of months where I listened to Aretha Franklin a lot, and I considered that kind of my soul cycle, and then I went on to like a jazz cycle after that and other such things. Lara, the situation with Mooney Ward, who had and he gave a great interview with us during camp and his transparency about just the emotional and mental aspect of coming back from injury and then deciding that, in fact, he wanted to continue his career, but now he did not make the trip because of, I believe it is a back injury. What can you tell us the latest on Mooney Ward?
Yeah, that's what we know is he didn't make the trip just out of an abundance of, kind of caution and being able to treat that injury and navigate that, especially since you have a huge week ahead with those 2 joint practices against Atlanta. So, this is the first time that he's missed all training camp, though. He has been out there every snap seemingly. So hoping that this is purely something that's isolated and not going to linger. We'll see if he practices Saturday and Sunday as the team gets back to Grand Park. But yeah, it seems to be something that just really popped up this week, not something that had been bothering him or that was kind of leading throughout the first 2 weeks of camp.
Give me the name of a player that you were, and I don't necessarily mean even from a rookie standpoint, but a player that you didn't have on your bingo card on the day that you arrived at Drop Like Grand Park that you now say, this is somebody that's going to be regularly in getting reps over the course of the year, and I didn't necessarily expect that a month ago?
Ooh, this is a great question. I think, one, it is a rookie, Bryce Betcher. I think he's been incredibly consistent. And one of the things I always watch for in camp, especially with young guys, doesn't always have to be rookies, but you watch during training camp is how consistent are they stacking good days? And if they have an off day or an off play, are they able to isolate that and not one good play turn into a stretch or a series of bad plays or one bad day leading into the next? And it's been tough to see Betcher make a whole lot of mistakes. I know Lou Anarumo's very high on him. He told me that he really feels like that the playbook's coming to him very quickly. He feels like he's playing really fast, and that's an area where he has huge opportunity. There's immense turnover in that linebacker room, obviously, and CJ Allen, his fellow rookie, has been out a little bit with some I believe it's a hamstring issue. So I think this has created immense opportunity for Bryce Betcher. And by everything I can tell, he has maximized those opportunities. I'm excited to see what he does out there. I would imagine he'll play tonight.
Lara, in your observation, and maybe even just through osmosis conversations you've had with not just Shane Steichen, but other coaches that have been through here in Indianapolis, okay? And this is maybe a question that fluctuates from one era to the next of football, but what position or what group do you feel, if you surveyed NFL coaches, would they most often tell you is the one that they can kind of get by with masking if it is not a group that is as sound as where they want it to be? What is the one area or one position that is kind of like the little league left fielder that you can say, if my best player's not there, I can mask it?
Oh, that's really interesting. I mean, I think that you could certainly, the positions it's not, right? It's not quarterback.
Correct.
It's not wide receiver. It's definitely not secondary. I feel like to a degree, maybe a little bit of defensive line. If you're able to if you have enough depth at D line, you can maybe get by. I think linebacker is good with that. Also, maybe I think where I'm going to go on this as I'm kind of talking my way through it, perhaps it's tight end, where there are a lot of other ways that you can compensate for, what the tight end does with some other, in some other fashion. So that might be where I could see you could get by a little bit if you have you don't have your number one. For example, if Tyler Warren isn't out there for Shane Steichen and for Daniel Jones, I think you would have enough to get by with the complementary skill set between, Mo, Drew Ogletree, Will Mallory, and maybe what you could do with that type of a group. So I guess specific to the Colts, that might be the one that but I think it probably looks a little different for a lot of teams.
We will see Anthony Richardson first half, Riley Leonard second half. That is the game plan as of now, correct?
Yes, that's correct. And then for the game against Atlanta, Riley will play the first half. Right. Anthony will play the second half.
Okay. Jonathan Taylor, obviously, not going to be out there. Seth McGowan has been intriguing, I think. And I feel like, and you tell me if I'm reading this wrong, I feel like DJ Giddens, this is actually a very important preseason stretch of games for him because, yes, he was the backup running back a year ago, and they had a lot of promise about him or for him, hope for him. But I don't know that he sees that. I think McGowan is flashing a little bit here. Am I off base?
There's no doubt that he has flashed. And you talk about consistency. You feel like that he's making a play every time the ball comes his way, right? And, your guy, Ulysses Bentley, had a huge day as well.
By the way,
he's had.
I do request, Lara, just so you know, it's not just Ulysses Bentley. It's Ulysses Bentley the fourth.
The fourth.
We got to differentiate because, the third, we don't, the second, the first, it's the fourth. Just so you know. But yes.
Absolutely. But so one of the notes that I'm working on for tonight's broadcast in regards to Seth McGowan is the fact that he has had a relationship with DeAndre Smith, Colts running backs coach, since he was coming out of high school, DeAndre actually recruited Seth McGowan when DeAndre was at Texas Tech. And although he ended up going to Oklahoma, the two stayed in touch throughout Seth's college journey. And then they reconnected at the combine. So DeAndre was elated to be able to get him late in the draft. And I asked DeAndre Smith, despite knowing Seth as many years as you have, what is something he's shown you since he's been here, even beyond what you were previously aware of? And he said that he is very conscientious. He describes him as a quiet worker, soaks in everything, observes everything. DeAndre said he was totally surprised with that, just how much he wants to sit back and learn, and then applies that when he's on the field. And you can just see the immense dividends that he is reaping from that. And I mean, just think about the clinic that you get to have when you're in a room with Jonathan Taylor.
Sure.
And, how much information and, everything that JT does, and not even just from what he does on the field. I mean, JT is absolutely relentless in, the preparation and the prehab and the rehab and all of that. And I think that Seth McGowan has certainly taken to heart the opportunity that he has, and the opportunity to be in this room with Jonathan Taylor, and then, of course, kind of come back and resurrect that relationship with DeAndre Smith as well.
Of your colleagues between Rick Venturi, Matt Taylor, Greg Rakestraw, I'd like to know which one is most like.
We can't forget about the coordinator of the radios now.
Casey Vallier as well,
That's right?
I'd like to know which of them is most likely to join you at your next session at Soul Cycle.
Oh, that's a good one. Well, so not broadcast, not broadcast necessarily, but JJ Stankovitz did join me today.
Okay.
So I guess so JJ gets the nod. He went along. We actually had a group of about 12 people from the team that all went today. So, but none of them on the broadcast. I bet though I could get Charles Arbuckle in a spin class.
Yeah, I can see that. I think, listen, Venturi's got the new knees now. He's all up for it.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, he's
He told
around.
me, you know what? He told me he got his bicycle out the other day, actually.
See,
he was
I'm
probably
telling
up there around Cicero. Also, do not sleep on Billy Brooks, because Bill still gets after it too. I've been on the treadmill next to Bill, and I'm like, shoot, I gotta punch that plus button and take the speed up a little bit, because Bill's dusting me.
Rick Venturi told me that he listens to this radio program during his workouts, and I thought to myself, why not add two dreadful things into your day at the same time? Ann Arbor, Atlanta, Bay Area, Connecticut, Chicago, D.C., Hamptons, Long Island, Maryland, Massachusetts, Miami, New Jersey, New York, Seattle, Pennsylvania, San Francisco. I like how they just put Pennsylvania. Like it's just in the middle of, we don't know where in Pennsylvania, but find it. Southern California, Texas, Virginia, Westchester, Palm Beach, and London, UK, all of your sites for Soul Cycle. And then, of course, virtual as well. All right, Lara, we will let you get prepared for the game tonight. I appreciate the time as always, and enjoy the Dunkin' if you were able to stop by one of those as well. Appreciate it as always.
Pretty sure, if I remember correctly, I think there's Dunkin' in the press box, so I will take advantage.
I'm sure of that. I am sure of that. Lara Overton joining us on the program. Much appreciated. Again, you will see her television broadcast tonight. You will hear Casey is coordinating that radio team, right? Casey Valle?
Yes. And I believe he will be hosting the fifth quarter huddle tonight after the game. So,
I've got it right here. Colts Patriots pregame huddle 4:30. Right,
yes.
Pregame huddle right here.
He'll
on this
be on
radio
the part of
station.
that coverage with JMV, Bill Brooks, Rick Venturi.
Countdown to kickoff at 6:30. Network coverage, the game beginning at 7:30, fifth quarter at running until 1:30 a.m.
Yeah,
right?
we don't know exactly what time it'll start, just because it all depends on how long the game lasts.
They're going until 1:30?
They're supposed to go until 1:30, yeah.
I'll bet you Casey's got some of that Dunkin' coffee going.
I'm sure.
Think so?
Yeah.
We might have to. Now, he's not, but he's out there, right?
No, Casey's here.
We'll get him some. I got to go by today and drop by Chicago's Pizza. I'll drop some off for him here.
There you go.
Be able to have some late. Tony East going to join us, by the way. Going to do so in about 10 minutes. Hey there, Jake Query for Surfside. Yesterday, as a matter of fact, my cousin and I went out and watched the Blue Jays and the Red Sox. Go Jays. My cousin's a Red Sox fan. But we also enjoyed a Surfside while we were doing it, and it is just simply the best. We had the iced tea and lemonade with a splash of vodka right there in the can, and just 100 calories, 2 grams of sugar, and without the carbonation, oh so smooth. You heard me talking about the fact that Surfside, not only is it a great product, folks, but just great people as well. Ryan and the entire team, great folks, and they are putting out the very best when it comes to iced tea and vodka, lemonade and vodka. You can do variety packs or just simply enjoy a specific flavor like the blueberry lemonade that has been huge for them. Look for it wherever you buy your favorite adult beverages. Surfside. Please be 21 and please consume responsibly.
You're listening to Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
You know, I'm smelling something fishy here, Eddie.
Is it the clam chowder?
How did you? Somebody in the office used the office microwave for tilapia. No, I'm smelling something fishy. There's some shady business going on here.
Oh.
Now, you know me. Would you list me as a conspiracy theorist?
Yes, I would. I would indeed.
Seriously?
Yeah, I think you like a good conspiracy theory.
No, I mean my nickname in high school was Q, but let's end it there. I'm a critical thinker. How about that? I think
Sure.
I think outside the box.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. Sure.
I don't know. Give me a conspiracy theory that you think I buy into or I spout with regularity.
That the Toronto Blue Jays won the World Series?
Well, that's true. He was safe.
No.
All I'm saying is this. And this I will absolutely fight to the death on this. Had they called him safe, they would not have overturned it. I am 100% convinced of that. But something fishy's going on with the NBA. Something ain't adding up. I'm going to ask it to Tony East next.
Query and Company.
I'm going to be keeping you company for the next few hours.
You are not going to believe the company.
This company.
You're going to bankrupt your mama's company?
At least I have the radio to keep me company.
On 93.5 and 107.5, The Fan.
So here is my inquiry of, and I'm being very flippant, by the way. But good afternoon to you. We'll get into it in just a second. Jay Query along with Eddie Garrison. It's Query and Company here on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. If you are just joining us on the show,
Where have you been?
Mike Vanderjagt has been announced as the general manager and head coach of the Indianapolis Capitals, which will play in the Continental Football League, I believe it is.
Yes.
That's kind of the name and the imaging of it is a tip of the cap, a rebrand, if you will, of a semi-pro team that won championships here in Indianapolis in the late 60s. I mentioned earlier that was one of Robin Miller's favorite teams in sports to cover. Also, Colts in action tonight, obviously preseason game number 1 against New England. Thank you to Lara Overton, who just joined us to go over that and talk about some of the areas. Linebacker is notably one that I'm very curious to see. I agree with Freshface, who said I'm really curious to see who their linebackers are going to be coming up at the start of the year. Totally agree with that. And the Bears right about now, I think, at noon Eastern, they said. So I think that's maybe it was noon Chicago time, but I think it's noon Eastern. The Chicago Bears are making an announcement or holding a press conference in Chicago to update on their potential move from Chicago to Hammond. And this has gone back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And I agree with, and I'm on board with what a lot of people say, which is whatever they decide and announce, I'll believe it once we actually see photos of dirt's going, or shovels going into the dirt, because and one of the things, and I think this was more speculative, but I think it would be a smart play. I saw from, a Bears message board, fan site. Message boards don't exist anymore, but you get what I'm saying. There was some speculation that, in fact, and I think maybe it was kind of hinted that the Bears, if they were to move to Hammond, could potentially change to the Indiana Bears. Now, we all know that's not going to happen. We all know they're not going to be the Indiana Bears. They're not going to be the Hammond Bears. They're going to be the Chicago Bears. And if they're playing in the state of Indiana, near Hammond, it's no different than the New York Jets playing in New England, than the Washington Commanders playing in Maryland. But it actually would be smart play, and I'm being 90% serious here. It would be smart play for the Bears if they know they're moving to Hammond to have somebody leak the idea, the thought process, that they could, in fact, call themselves the Indiana Bears. There is an element of that is, in fact, kind of genius, because we all know they're not going to. But if they throw that out there, and then they announce, in fact, that they are leaving the city of Chicago to go to Hammond, then they can say in their marketing campaign of it, new stadium, new place, same team, Chicago Bears. And even though it had been leaked out there they were going to change it, it softens the blow to people of the fact of the reality they're leaving Chicago when they then say, but we are still the Chicago Bears. And people, the emotion of the fan base would be more relief that it's still the Chicago Bears than it would be dismay that they are leaving Soldier Field or leaving Cook County. That's just my own thought on all of that. But again, even there are some that are saying today they're going to make a definitive statement, and others that are saying today is just simply an update on the latest carousel of what this all is in terms of the Bears' ultimate final, or at least for the time being, final destination. Now, the NBA Now, I'm not saying conspiracy theory here, but I'm going to bring Tony East in, okay? Tony East joins us from a number of different outlets, WTHR, obviously one of them, right? Tony, can you for me list I'm curious for you, if you were to walk into Kinko's and get the Tony East business card printed, what is the one of the multiple places that you work that you would put at the top?
I don't know. I was going to make a joke that I bought the Lakers right before this phone call. So can I put Lakers owner on there?
Sure.
Okay.
For his $12 billion, right?
Well, I paid 12.6 just to up the bid.
Fair enough.
Please, if I'm paying that much, I want you to get it right. I'd probably put Locked On Pacers on there. That's where most people know me from, but I do lots of things.
Okay, Locked On Pacers. And then there's a spin too, right? Like a spin you put on there?
Yeah. Well, I write for lots of places. We don't need to run through all of them. It's okay. It's not important to me where you introduce me from. Just say my name.
Wow, look at that. He's like Beyonce, right?
Okay, I don't know about
Jake.
that.
Nice pull, Jake.
Thank you. See, Eddie, I don't know if you know this or not, but what you're dealing with here is young and hip. Although that's neither one of those is necessarily even that. Tony, initially I heard it was going to be like sometime around noon that we were going to get the NBA schedule released. Then it was 3:00. Now they're saying it could be 3:15. It's going to be during JMV's show. That much we know. But I'd like to think that this is all because somebody is getting finicky and they don't want to play on a certain day. Why is this taking so long?
It always comes out at 3, I thought, but it is always weird that like games get released beforehand and they do all this silly stuff with it. But it actually does get tweaked. Like the way I've heard that the schedule goes is like they send a first draft out like in late July, early August. Adam Silver hinted at that when he was talking about LeBron James to pick a team, right? So he could put a schedule together for the league, and then teams look at it and they like not suggest edits because obviously every team would like their schedule to be as favorable as possible, but just like, a tweak here, a tweak there, and then it's finalized. So I think that's what makes these little hurdles happen kind of at the end.
Okay, so let's begin with this, Tony East, and I want to talk about the Fever as well, but on the Pacers schedule, of the things that we know that have been leaked or some of the like special games that we're aware of, right now we know of what?
We know their NBA Cup schedule, and that's actually like important for their season because a big part of what this Pacers season is going to be about is they have to reintegrate Tyrese Halliburton. They have to integrate Ivica Zubac. They have to integrate Kelly Oubre. 3 of their top 7 or 8 guys are, of question how they're going to play to start the season. And the NBA Cup is at the beginning of the season. So the Pacers are, as they're going to be figuring out kind of what this season's all about, where their strengths are with this new look group, playing against very challenging opponents. Group B is them, the Cavs, the Heat, the Knicks, and the 76ers. So they're guaranteed to play all those teams before the end of November.
Okay. But in terms of specific dates, there are none yet that we know officially, correct?
All 4 of those are known. I don't remember the exact date for all 4. It's like 4 Fridays in a row from late October to late November. And then they play the Warriors in Golden State on President's Day. That's another one that we know.
Okay, so Warriors on President's Day, but and we also know they are not playing on Christmas Day, correct?
That's correct. Thank goodness. Thank goodness.
No, hold on. People are all excited about it.
Why? Why? Can I dude, I soapbox this so much. I'm going to do it right now. I get that fans want their team to be respected, but don't you want to enjoy Christmas with your family? Can we please not have them play that day? I'm very happy with this.
I could not agree with you more. I have always felt, I get it. I mean, in the late afternoon,
not everybody celebrates also.
Also fair.
Understood.
But in the late afternoon of Christmas Day, there is part of me that's like, can we not just get a day off from, you know what I mean? So yes, that I understand. We also know that Tyrese Halliburton is apparently at this point, Tony, 100%. And in addition to that the first opportunity that we will get to see him play is going to be at Iowa State, correct?
Yeah, he told us that yesterday right before the Pacers announced it. They're playing the Wolves there because Minnesota's G League affiliate's in Iowa, so at least some fan base, I suppose. Really cool for Ty. It was interesting because, the summer after he played for Team USA, he barely played, if at all, in the preseason that year, right? So I wondered if coming off the Achilles, meaningless games, is he even going to play in the preseason? Is he going to play 5 minutes here or there to just get his, his win back and things like that. But if they're playing in Ames, yeah, Tyrese Halliburton's playing in the game. So I have no doubt that we will see Tyrese Halliburton in that game, and that'll be his return to play for the Pacers. So that'll be cool, even though it's not in Indiana.
And okay, so let's get to this. For that game or others, do you yet, Tony East, have an idea, or are we definitive as to where you can watch the team if you're not able to attend?
No, that is not yet finalized. The reported one from, I think it was Sportico, was DAZN. Did I talk to you about this, or was that JMV? I can't remember. But
that's DAZN, by the way, for those unfamiliar. That's
yes.
An app that shows like British boxing, right?
It used to be like the main thing for a lot of fighting sports, and they've kind of slowly ventured into other stuff, and that is weirdly how it's pronounced, even though it doesn't look like it at all. But I used it for this thing called Courtside 1981, which is where they put a lot of international basketball. So that's how I watched the World Cup qualifiers in July. And it was like you don't pay for DAZN, you just paid for that subscription on there. It was pretty nice. And DAZN has already announced agreements with the Knicks, the Nets, and I believe Minnesota for next year. And Minnesota was on FanDuel last year. So, again, we don't know this, but it certainly seems like it's trending that way of reporting, and other teams are to be believed.
But, Tony, and there are a variety of reports on this, but it would appear as though it's going to cost people upwards of like possibly $24.99 a month in order to get that subscription to see Pacer games?
Well, that's what I was saying is separate. That makes the pricing impossible. Like, people checked, like, you can pay a blanket fee for like everything, but when I paid, why I brought up Courtside is like it was its own separate. It was $5 a month. I'm not saying Pacer are going to be that cheap, but they like price it out for the package you're paying for.
Gotcha.
So I don't know what the pricing will be or how different it would be than last season or anything like that, but I can't imagine it's going to be, people said $35. That'd be like a $15 growth from last year. I can't imagine that.
So what we're saying here, potentially, based on your observation or your experience, is that DAZN, which is an app, okay, that you can subscribe to, they offer either a buffet where you can go in and literally you pay one big fee and get whatever you want, or you can go in and just buy one entree, which is much less than the buffet price, and it is your hope or expectation the Pacers may be offered as an entree, which is much less than the buffet price that gives you access to everything, including brass knuckle Irish boxing, right?
Correct. And honestly, very similar to how it was if you wanted to get FanDuel through like Amazon Prime last year. Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. Let's get to the Fever and their game coming up here against the Wings. That will be tomorrow night. I think a pretty good test because it's the first time they've seen them since the beginning of the year. So it's a good barometer, I guess, more than anything else. Tony, do you believe you are around this team probably more than anyone from a media standpoint? It was your video really that kind of went viral of you were the first one to get it out there really of Stephanie White and her pregame comments. And you can see, and I talked about it plenty yesterday, but do you think that some of this chatter is in fact creeping in now and causing distraction for the Fever, or is it actually making them stronger as a unit?
I actually do think the latter is true. Like, it gets to a point where you hear everybody talking about you, but if it's not reality, like, you're like laughing about it with each other or talking about it in the locker room. Like, how funny is this? This is ridiculous. Right. And so not all of it's funny. Obviously, a lot of it's really serious and unsettling and in some ways scary. But, I do think it, and in a lot of ways has made them closer as a group. And they've talked about that a lot throughout the season, even if it was, not like it is right now. So, I do actually think that that's been the case recently. And of course, what happened in the Sky game happened, and there was some sort of tipping point that made Stephanie White feel the need to, say all the things that she said before the last game, which she did mention some of the comments after that game being relevant to that when I asked her post game. But yeah, I do think as a group, like, they always talk about it. There's all these reports and people speculating about their locker room fracturing and hatred for each other. And they've never even hinted at that, or even to me, shown any like body language signs of that. Honestly, they've been pretty well bonded and smiley as a group all the time.
What do you believe is, here's an odd way of saying this, Tony. If you had to pick a teammate pairing that is of two teammates that are the tightest knit bond for the Fever? What two teammates seemingly have the closest relationship with one another in terms of the way that they work on the floor and just the understanding they have of the common link of wanting to win?
Yeah, basketball-wise, purely, I mean, the stars all in like a duo pairing have really elevated the last like month and a half, I would say. I mean, we heard early in the careers of Caitlin and Kelsey being teammates that the Fever studied the Golden State Warriors and Clay and Steph and how they work off each other. And those two have really of late figured out each other much better in terms of cutting and timing and when to push. And Aaliyah Boston's this great screener and she's really mastered her finishing around the basket. So she has great synergy with both of those stars. And to me, the reason the Fever have been playing so well of late and why they're 9 games over 500 now is that their stars are just all at the same time, just a buzzsaw in a way that early in the season, I talked to you about this on this program, like they had trouble with all 3 stars on the floor at times. They were better with just 2. And that's why I say that is they have the pairings down, the 2-player pairings down. Now all 3 are working together. But from a basketball perspective, those are the best fits. Honestly, it's interesting. Like I watch them a lot when they like stretch before practice, which sounds silly, but they align in the same row because they're creatures of habit every day. But they all like are, talking to someone different every day, or they're cordial with someone different. Like there's not like obviously they're better friends, whatever, like every human alive, but they all do really get along with basically everybody. It's been really interesting to kind of see that dynamic evolve throughout the season. I think that is, honestly, I've seen this with the Pacers too, a superpower of the best teams. Like if you have connective players on your team that make it a friendly everyday environment, like everybody wants to work harder and play better.
Which was more needed? And that sounds the wrong way, but which has more taken place? That the complementary pieces have figured out, because she wasn't there last year, obviously, for the majority of the, at the end of the year, or for the latter part of the year with injury. So have teammates had to figure out exactly the timing of playing with Caitlin Clark, or has Caitlin Clark had to figure out the spacing and timing of her teammates?
Yeah, I think a little bit more the latter this year, which sounds silly because she's, she's the reason they play the style that they do. But, Aaliyah talked about last year, Aaliyah Boston, early in the season, like she struggled in Caitlin's rookie year because they changed their pace so much and she had to adjust to that. But then they really ironed out their style with Caitlin and all this stuff. And then she got hurt. And so they kind of had to tweak things to play a certain way that catered to their healthy stars, which at the time was Kelsey Mitchell and Aaliyah Boston. And don't get me wrong, they almost lost the first round, but like they also almost made the finals. So they know that they have proof of concept that even with much inferior talent to what they have right now, that pairing worked and that style worked. And so they did up the tempo. They're first in pace. They're first in offensive rating, right? Like very clearly what they're doing is working, especially on offense. But I think Kaylin did have to come in and not just say, nope, we're going full blow, give me the ball all the time, and like stuff like that. Like she kind of had to figure the right way to ease into this, and especially as she had minutes restrictions throughout the season and things of that nature. And to her credit, she and all of them have figured out exactly how to have that synergy, and that's why every night the question isn't are they going to score, it's are they going to get enough stops to win, because they're going to score a bunch of points.
Tony, one of the classic, Tony East is my guest from Locked On Pacers. He's on the Swab Men's 2-1 hotline. One of the oldest lines in the book when it comes to sports is that when a coach gets the vote of confidence from management, that they're drafting the HR letter right then, right? Stephanie White got exactly that earlier this week. I mean, the Fever issuing a statement basically saying, we are totally confident and comfortable and happy with the leadership and the coaching of this franchise, et cetera. What do you believe is her stability and relationship within the franchise in terms of the hierarchy?
I do oftentimes agree that those statements hit the opposite way of like, why are you even issuing this? But this one was in conjunction with her pregame comments and like more, once again, faulty reporting that she was fired when she's not. And so, I don't know if they needed to say like, oh, she didn't get fired, we have her back. But yeah, but she's 44, and was this right? I'm doing math in my head, which is never a good thing. 45 and 32 in 2 years, and all her players were like extremely emotional that she got booed before, the game, which was strange because for me personally, because I came out of the elevator right when it happened, so I couldn't tell if it was that much different, but it certainly was after listening back. And so they were really emotional about that whole experience and how that sat for her. So I think personally that from a basketball perspective, she's done a good job. Like, has she nailed every single press conference? No, but that's not the priority for her as a coach. Coaching the team is, and that part is going well. And we even talked to Aaliyah today about, like, they always talk about how we were talking about this. The outside noise brings them together. They think Steph's been a big part of that, like leading the way there. They call it closing the fist to bring everybody together. So, yeah, I think she's doing a good job and doing what the team has asked of her. But the playoffs always tell all with this stuff, right? So let's talk about this again in a month and a half, because last year she was spectacular coaching in the playoffs.
People that love Caitlin Clark, which is understandable, and people that are fans of Caitlin Clark as opposed to fans of the Fever, which I know there are those as well. Is it possible all of this noise, all of this constant chatter, all of this vortex, as I call it, is it possible that actually is going to have adverse effect and Caitlin Clark is going to make the decision that she is the one that needs a change of scenery eventually?
No, I don't think so. I think she understands that she is in a team concept and plays for a team and has to work with the team.
I don't mean from the team standpoint. Don't misunderstand. I mean just in terms of like I said, the fan noise. Like, is it possible that it gets to the point where if there's this constant scrutiny of Stephanie White and of Sophie Cunningham and of all of it, that Caitlin Clark just says, I just want to go somewhere where I don't have to contend with all of the extraneous speculation?
I mean, she'll be contending with it everywhere she goes. So no, right? Like,
everywhere.
I think there's one market where she wouldn't be like the A focal point, and that would be in New York because of the Yankees and Aaron Judge.
Fair. I mean, and maybe you could say L.A., right?
Yeah, with Ohtani.
Right. But yes, I mean, I agree.
It would still happen. It would still happen
within the
like
W.
If her fans are if her fans are fans of her, like, it's, again, everywhere they go, the coach won't be right and the team won't be right. Everybody's an idiot.
Okay, that's the one thing that I'll say, Tony, is
especially me.
I hear a lot of and again with the critique of Stephanie White, and I know it's the low-hanging fruit response, but what I would like sometimes to answer with is, well, who would please you? Like, what coach would you want? And I don't mean as a knock on Caitlin Clark or the fans or whatever else. Within the transcendent vortex of people that I've talked about that are hell-bent on making everything some sort of a polarizing, the illustration of an argument they're trying to make. With that group of people, with that subculture, if you will, of it, no matter who is coaching, there is always going to be that critique of that person, and I don't care whether they put Red Auerbach in that position, they would be critiqued. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I think so. It's just how it is, right? I think that's true on like a micro level for every team, right? Like, every time the Pacers lose, people are like, well, this is Rick Carlisle's fault. And every time they win, it's the player's fault that they won. It's like, hang on, like, I think the same people should get the same amount of credit, win or lose. And obviously one person's actions or influence on a specific day can have more power, more storytelling part. But like, I've never understood that part of the relationship between a fan and a team is like, loss equals coach, win equals player. I've never understood that.
Tony, when does your tour of the great Indiana State Fair and all of its delicacies begin?
I think it will be next Tuesday and Wednesday, but it's been very challenging with the weather this week to go.
I know. They closed yesterday at 4:30, I think. Hopefully today they can get some time. And the Dairy Bar, unfortunately, that's a huge fundraiser for them, right? And it's hurt them. I know that you, and for those that don't know, Tony East, when he's not at Fever press conferences or talking about the Pacers or watching World Cup basketball on DAZN, he is actually on the interwebs researching, scouting, and mapping out all of the different food offerings at the Indiana State Fair. This year, the food offering, other than the Big Dill grilled cheese sandwich and the blue raspberry milkshake, the food offering that Tony East has on his bucket list card is what?
No, a big problem. The list is on my wife's phone. I can't even tell you all of them right now. How embarrassing. I literally just opened my notes app to see if we made it a collaborative note, but we didn't.
You can do a collaborative note?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Wow.
So both of you can edit it at the same time.
Okay. Because isn't there some mac and cheese thing last year that you were willing to?
Oh,
I feel like you're really outing my build as a guy right now by telling
No,
people that
you've mentioned this on the air.
I scout my food route
No,
at the
if you
state
recall,
fair.
Tony,
I
and
do
again,
mention it on the air. Yes.
What you're talking to here is an elephant. In other words, in many areas, I remember everything. And one of the things I remember is, and people don't know this, and I don't know if it says that I'm there all the time or you're there all the time, but for 7 straight years, I have run into you on the backstretch of the Indiana State Fair. And,
Yes, we have.
And then I mentioned that on the air once, and you said, yes, we actually do a thing where we scout out all of the food. You mentioned this on the air.
You get the map with the little stars.
Yeah.
You figure all the stations out. Yeah, the mac and cheese bites were really good last year. We got the and they had
Now we got
they
it
had
going.
the what was the other one? They had a cookie butter milkshake or something like that. That was really good. That was hard to find. That was delicious. I can't. I literally can't remember. I was trying to look it up right now while I'm talking, but I'm failing epically.
Eddie, anything you want to add?
no.
How about the kettle corn, Tony? You do the kettle corn?
I do sometimes do the kettle corn, but it's like I gotta have space to fit it in. You know,
You mean
not always a
timing
thing.
space or food? Okay,
Well, hold on, Tony.
What,
You can take the kettle corn home. You don't have to eat it.
No,
at
no, no,
the
no, no,
state
no, no,
fair.
no. It's
How
not
about-
like we go to Europe every summer, and then it's so funny. We eat all these European foods, and then we come back and we're like, all right, fair food. It's the complete opposite. You don't want to take that home. You gotta.
all I
leave
get
it
in
behind.
Europe is a margarita pizza. Everywhere I go, I get a margarita pizza. It
Wow.
seems safe. Yeah, I know. I have a very finicky.
Oh, the Mexican street corn pizza looks phenomenal this year. That is something.
Okay, see, he's researching as we speak. All right, again, Fever in action tomorrow night. They're taking on the Wings. That is a 7:30 tip. Pregame at 7 o'clock right here on this radio station, and Fever Weekly, of course, airing on Wednesdays. That would have been last night at 6:30. Tony East having it all covered. Tony, appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. Tony East joining us on the program. All right, did we, Eddie, I'm going to look into, since we now know that they keep pushing back this NBA schedule release, and I've got my thoughts on that, I'm going to look into and find out if there is the latest on the other big story of the day that was supposed to happen while we're on the air, but it has yet to do so. And I'll let you know what that is. And upcoming, of course, keep in mind that we have our crossover with J&V brought to you by the good guys at Love Heating and Air. Love-HVAC.com is the website. 317-353-2141, the telephone number for Love Heating and Air, an official Heil Heating and Cooling dealer and serving Central Indiana for over 100 years. And when you are an official Heil Heating and Cooling dealer, you know that you are getting the very best in terms of whether it be the air conditioner unit, the furnace unit, maybe humidity control, whatever it might be in your house. Love Heating and Air is going to give you the very best, and they're going to do so with 24-hour on-call maintenance, great customer service, and they're going to treat you like family. 4 generations of a family-owned business right here in Central Indiana. That's Love Heating and Air, an official Heil Heating and Cooling dealer. 317-353-2141.
It's Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Okay, now, Eddie, it is my understanding that the Bears were expected to make an announcement at noon Eastern today. I could be wrong in the timing on that, but there has been no new news on this.
Well, our resident Bears fan that likes to sabotage the program sometimes, Mark Dykton. I was talking about it with him today, and he said noon Central. I said, wait, noon Central?
Okay.
I said, and he goes, oh, sorry, 11 a.m. Central, noon Eastern. I said, are you sure? He goes, yeah, I think.
Now, the reason that this has really escalated in terms of, because I think most people feel, as do I think most people feel that this is all Indiana kind of being used to get leverage with Chicago. I mean, I think that's the wide, almost accepted belief of people. Like, yeah, okay, this is all fun and games, but when it comes down to it, they're going to end up in either Arlington Heights or Chicago. And realistically, the one thing that I keep going back to, and I know that the area near Hammond, Wolf Lake, I think it's known as, I realize that they're now doing some site testing, and there have been like dump trucks seen in the area, and so people are like, okay, maybe this is real. It's still going to be the Chicago Bears. And I don't know, like, my hesitation is this. I understand what it means to that region of this state. And, I talked earlier about how in Indiana, I mean, being a Hoosier there's something to that. And we should be, for every area and every corner of this state, doing what we can to improve it. From a commerce standpoint, from a jobs standpoint, from a lifestyle standpoint, all of it. So, of course, I don't want people to misunderstand. Of course, I want people in the region to have something positive there that they can take pride in, and that it might help out with jobs or commerce or whatever it may be. The thing that I am very leery of, and there are not a lot of areas where I'm a smart guy. And there are not a lot of things that I pontificate about that end up being accurate or true or whatever, perhaps. But one of them where I almost every time have been proven correct is a skepticism of public subsidy for private entities, and to an extent, an NFL team is a private entity when it comes down to it, and the public subsidy that goes into these stadiums, and how they're so often, and in my belief, never do you get total return on investment. And while I understand the significance of getting and jump-starting and creating, and look, I know Gary's tried to do it. I mean, they got a beautiful baseball stadium there. They've tried to have like beauty pageants there, and they have tried numerous things to jumpstart Gary. And that is an area that, from a business standpoint, with so many of the mills and so much of the blue-collar industry that was the life backbone, not just of the region, but of this state for so many years, I totally understand the value, the importance, and the triumph it would be to give hope and pride to that area that has become so, I won't say neglected, but depressed. I don't mean depressed like sitting around listening to The Cure in a dark room. I mean depressed just like the life has been taken out of so much of what it is that you need as a community to be vibrant. My hesitation would be, at what cost do we as Hoosiers do that? Because are you going to get return on investment? Because, for example, if the Colts are playing the New York Jets, if the Colts are playing the New York Giants, if the Colts are playing the Washington Commanders, and you're going to the game, where are you most likely going for dinner the night before? What bars are you most likely going to watch the Sunday night game the night before if they're playing on Monday night? Or what are you going to do on Monday afternoon? Are you going and getting yourself the best dining option available in East Rutherford? The Colts are playing tonight against the Patriots in a preseason game in New England. We talked to Lara Overton earlier. Where were they staying? They're in Boston. We talked to Joel Erickson. Where's he staying? He's in Providence. They're not staying in Foxborough. I've been to Foxborough. I was at Gillette Stadium less than a year ago. There's a whole, Metropolis Plainfield level, little entertainment district right around that stadium with hotels and everything else. And guess what? People that are going to a Patriots game, what do their friends say when they get home? Did you go to Cheers? Did you go to the Freedom Trail? Did you get some clam chowder? Did you take a tour of Fenway? And my concern would be, if this happens, and I understand and appreciate the significance of it, but if this happens, are people realistically going to be getting hotel rooms in Hammond or Crown Point or Portage? Are they going to be having dinner in Munster and Gary? Are they going to be staying at the Hampton Inn in Portage and Crown Point? Or are they I'm going to Chicago to go see my Falcons play. Where are you staying? We're staying right off Michigan Avenue, and there's a great restaurant that my buddy recommended that has supposedly got the best steaks in the Midwest. And then on Sunday, we're going to get up and go to the game. I'm just concerned that a lot of people would basically go to the stadium and leave, which is fine, and I get it, but at what cost? That would be my concern, and that would be my question that I will only further amplify if, in fact, this does all come to fruition. Looks like, by the way, Mike Vanderjagt may join us tomorrow on the program. He has a new job in Indianapolis. Mike Vanderjagt's coming back, and we're going to talk to him tomorrow on the program. But when we come back right now, we're going to talk to JMV and find out what he's got lined up as part of the crossover brought to you by the good guys at Love Heating and Air. We will find out what John's got going on an abbreviated show because he's on at 3, but it is the Colts pregame huddle at 4:30. So we'll see what John's got cooking, and we'll find out next.
You're listening to Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Ten minutes before the hour of 1 o'clock. J&V will be with you at 3 o'clock today until 4:30. That's when the Colts pregame huddle gets underway. Hard to believe, but it is here. Football games for the Colts. Preseason game number 1. John is chilling in the car right now. I'm hoping, is that a Van Halen t-shirt you got on there?
It is. Hey, buddy. So I'm right down here in Bargersville. I'm actually near these soccer fields. I just turned it off for you a minute. I want to see if you can identify the song, okay?
All right. Here's the problem. It doesn't go through on Zoom.
Oh, it doesn't?
No.
Bummer,
Can you tell,
man.
Eddie? Is that Mexican radio?
No, Summer Breeze, Seals and Crofts.
Oh, yeah.
Rock. Yeah, I was going to make it really easy. I thought maybe it would come through, but
makes me
damn, like Florida Evans once upon a time famously said.
I do recall that. Now, we know that Florida only was saying that because John Amos had a contract dispute, right?
Yeah, he got sick and tired, I think, of the way they were writing things, too. He had it out. And, one of the great writers of that show, I thought was one of the greatest all-time supporting characters of really sitcom or television history. Do you know who that is?
I do not know. I mean, we're talking about Good Times, obviously, for those unfamiliar.
Yeah, Mike Evans, who played Lionel Jefferson on The Jeffersons,
Really?
and then prior to that, All in the Family. I thought, to me, to this day, he is one of the greatest supporting actors in a sitcom of all time. One of the greatest characters.
I loved Good Times. I thought Good Times was a great show, man. I always I
love Thelma.
Michael was always my Thelma. Oh, yeah.
I love Thelma. Thelma rocking tight sweaters. That got a little bit of 5-year-old me excited.
Of course, you got, yes, Eddie.
John, did you get that shirt when they were on tour in 1982? Because that's a 1982 tour shirt.
No, I know it is. Yeah, because I was always jealous that I didn't get to go to this. And there are some hillbillies I went to school with that were older than me that did, and they wore the T-shirts all the time, so I had to go find one.
And one of those hillbillies actually saved Brooke Shields from drowning and then blew all the reward money to have Van Halen come to Greene County. The good news is...
and this is a big day for us, Jake.
Big day for us?
Yeah, you know why?
Elaborate. Other than
on this date in 1982, Fast Times at Ridgemont High was released.
Oh, man, that's huge. Huge.
Yeah.
Now,
how did I not even know that?
John, let me throw this at you.
Yeah.
That could actually be the shirt from 1982 itself that you would have gotten as a kid and you'd still be able to fit it because of your weight loss. Now, I don't know if you heard what Kevin Bowen said this morning, but Kevin was making fun of the fact that your volume is turned up on your headsets, and he said, and I quote, can we not get him, talking about you, can we not get him some hearing aids? Everything else about him is fake at this point anyway. Now what do you say to that?
I'll say I'll get hearing aids if he showers up every morning before he comes in. How about that? Is that fair? Kevin showers up, and then I'll get hearing aids.
Yeah, I hear that. Let's put it that way. I hear that. So what is on the show today? Obviously at 3 o'clock before you hand it off 4:30 for the pregame huddle.
Mike Chappell will stop by, and then it's going to be me and Bill and Rick Venturi, Casey Valier doing our first Colts pregame huddle of the season. So pure excitement tomorrow. Pivot Balcony Bar downtown Hyatt Place, right next to Gamebridge Fieldhouse. So you got a big week planned for us right here. But hey, everybody remember, Jake and I will celebrate a little bit later. This date back in 1982. Fast Times at Ridgemont High. We all learned of the greatness of Phoebe Cates.
What's the best line in the whole movie?
Who's your tailor? I told Robert Romanus that last month.
Yeah.
Who's this tailor? I'm sorry. Who's this tailor?
I think he actually told you, my favorite line, I think he told you he had lived it when he said, I woke up in a great mood. I don't know what the hell happened.
Yes. Yeah. No, there are so many there. And, normally it is concentrating on Spicoli. But Damone Linda, Phoebe Cates, Brad, they all had great lines in that thing.
The best, man. Absolute best. All right, John, 3 o'clock we'll be listening, and then at 4:30, and we'll let you go back to enjoying the summer breeze while the sun is still out. All right, James will be with you. That is The Crossover, brought to you by the good guys at Love Heating and Air. Again, Mike Vanderjagt has a new gig. He is the coach and GM of the Indianapolis Capitals. It is the Capitals, right?
It is, yes.
He will join us tomorrow on the program. We will obviously break down everything that happens tonight in Foxborough, Colts Patriots preseason game number 1. I thank you for listening to Query and Company.